All right, so now that we've actually learned how to get to the top of our backswing, let's talk about these actual positions at the top that we can now get into. Because there's a couple different arm structures that we need to pay attention to and learn which one works best for us. So the first top of backswing position I want to talk about is when our arms get higher than our shoulder plane at the top of our swing. This is very common amongst some of the best ball strikers in the world, such as Colin Morikawa, Justin Thomas, and Scotty Scheffler. And there's a lot of benefits to this position, but the main one is they have a lot of control with their irons and their wedges. And this is because at the top of their swing, since their hands are higher, they don't have as much hand depth. And what depth is basically the distance your hands get away from the ball. So someone who gets to the very top and has very high hands doesn't have a lot of depth. Someone who gets the club very across their body has a lot of depth. And the more depth you have, the harder it can be to control your low point and control your angle of attack. So players that have these high hands have a very easy time at coming straight back down onto the golf ball, shallowing it out just a little bit, and having a lot of low point control. They can also flight irons and wedges down very easily, which gives them a lot of spin control and a lot of flight control. And this largely comes from that steeper angle of attack and being able to control that low point. This generally also allows them to hit fades, as this aids to a outside in path, and fades are some of the most controllable shots in golf. They can also keep the club more out in front of them as they come down, as like I said, the hand path does not get as deep. They don't have as much depth, right? So when they come to the top, they have no issue getting the arms and hands back down in front, unlike people who might have a lot of hand depth who can get back here and then spin out their lower body and get stuck very easily. And that can really cause your ball striking to suffer. One thing to note about people with high hands is that they usually don't quite hit it as far, especially with the driver. They're not always the best driver players because of their higher hands. Their ability to get a little bit steeper on the ball generally can cause some extra spin to be imparted on the driver as compared to someone who has a lot of hand depth. So there's pros and cons to each position. So let's talk about the reverse now. Let's talk about when our hands get very deep at the top of our swing. This can be seen with a lot of really great players such as Rory McIlroy, Bryson DeChambeau, and also Ricky Fowler, like the old Ricky swing where he would rip that thing across his chest. One thing to note about this position is that it really allows you to come in a lot shallower, a lot more of an inside out path. It's easier to hit these little draws from back here. And another thing is that usually players who get their hands very deep are great drivers of the ball, as you need a shallower angle of attack for hitting your driver well. You know, we want to hit up on it, as we talked about in the alignment and the setup video. So if we have this nice setup here, we get our hands deeper, it's very easy to then drop the club under, hit way up on the ball, and be a great driver. It's also easy to be a little bit faster when you do it this way. So if you set up and you get your hands very far away from the ball, this is a lot of distance for the hands to now have to travel and gain speed. So generally, you'll see people who have deeper hands at the top of their backswing have a little bit faster club head speed. You do need to be careful with this position though, because it can lead you to getting stuck. And now, like I mentioned earlier, getting stuck is when you get the hands far behind the body and then you don't get them back in front. The body kind of spins out without the hands, and you get in this position here where you're forced to then early extend and throw the club out just to make some sort of contact. Another thing is that usually, since they have a shallower angle of attack just built into their swing due to the depth of their hands, they're usually not as good of iron or wedge players, because you really need a steeper angle of attack to hit your irons well and consistently. And you really need to be steeper with the wedges if you want to have any control over your spin. So if you have your hands very deep, you have that natural shallower, more inside out club path, you're going to get a lot of these wedge shots that are shooting up high right, and you don't have a lot of control. Unfortunately, that's exactly what happened to Rory McIlroy in the Masters this past year. You can remember on hole 13, he dumped his wedge from about 90 yards into the water, and that was not very good. It almost cost him the tournament. So that is something you need to be aware of as well. With all that being said, the top of your backswing position really is up to you. It depends on what you're struggling with and what might need to be fixed in your swing currently. If you're someone who has a very shallow angle of attack and you're not hitting your irons and your wedges well, it might help you to get a little bit more higher with the hands, a little bit more vertical of a backswing. On the opposite end, maybe you're getting too steep on the ball. Maybe you're coming over the top very easily and you're not sure what to do about it. A very quick and simple fix could be to just get a little bit less vertical and get more hand depth, so you have more of a natural angle of attack and a more of a natural inside out path. It really just depends on what you're struggling with and what you need to do to your swing. So top of the backswing, it's really up to the individual.